Okay, well, Hans, thanks so much for sitting down with us.
Sure, thanks for having me.
First question, President Trump, he has promised to build this wall. The White House is talking about some different options they think they have. What do you think is the best option for them if they have to go around Congress to get this wall built?
Well, what the president is talking about is declaring a national emergency and using appropriated funds that he's got the ability to direct to that. Now, we can't really judge the legality of that until we see what he actually does. But there is a federal law, it's called the National Emergencies Act, was passed in 1976, and it outlines that the way the president does this. He's got to formally declare it, and then he's got to tell Congress what underlying statutes he's operating under. And there are a very large number of federal laws that can be used when a president declares an emergency. And in fact, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but right now there are something like 30 declared national emergencies, including 10 issued during the Obama administration. But what we're going to have to do is wait and see what statutes the president cites, federal laws, that he says gives him the authority to act the way he is doing.
So how legally sound is it if he does declare this national emergency?
Well, I'll give you an example. You know, there are a lot of funds appropriated by Congress that go to particular federal agencies that are tied to a very particular purpose. On the other hand, there are appropriated funds that go to federal agencies that are not. And to give you an example of this, most folks have heard of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, right? They build dams all over the country. They're responsible for flood control in Mississippi. They get a lot of money every year from Congress for what are essentially civilian construction projects. If the Army Corps of Engineers has the discretion to decide how to use that money, in other words, if they get funds that Congress hasn't said it has to go to this particular dam or this particular river, but it's just a general fund that the Corps can use for construction projects that it believes, you know, enhance public safety or in the interest of the country, then it's potentially money that the president could use for this purpose of building a more secure border fence, a more secure border wall in various places along the country. But again, it depends on which money he wants to try to use, whether it's money at DHS or DOD or elsewhere.
So you're saying he can do it. It just depends how.
I think it's likely he can do it, but like I said, as you know, the federal budget is huge. And it all depends on the White House finding money that's already been appropriated but isn't tied to a specific purpose that he can, through this national emergency declaration, properly use for securing the border.
Do you personally think he should declare a national emergency?
Well, look, I would certainly prefer that this be done through Congress. You know, it's the job of Congress to appropriate the funds, particularly the House of Representatives under our Constitution, that's needed for the federal budget and to accomplish the kind of solutions to public policy problems that we all agree on. But if Congress won't do it, and if the president believes this really is a national emergency, if he believes national security is threatened, well, yeah, he probably needs to consider this. I mean, look, to give you another example, if the United States were attacked by a military force, I don't think people would want to wait for Congress to appropriate the money and give the president the permission for him to respond to that, and that he should wait until Congress acted. I mean, that's why there is a federal law called the National Emergencies Act. So the president can act when he feels it's necessary for either public safety reasons or for national security reasons.
And we are in week 3 of this partial government shutdown.
Right.
President Trump, he thinks he's winning. Democrats, they think they're winning. Hans, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think it's important for people to understand that 3/4 of the government is not only operating but funded. It's only about 1/4 of the government that is at risk here, including the Department of Homeland Security. It's not that that's a minor problem, but when I hear people talking about, oh, there's a complete government shutdown, that of course is not true. I actually think the president is probably coming out ahead on this, and here's the reason. I think probably most people remember that more than a year ago, the president offered the Democrats a huge compromise. He said that in exchange for funding the wall and border security things that he thought were needed, remember, he agreed that he would provide amnesty and a road to citizenship for over 2 million illegal aliens in the country, a much larger number than the DACA beneficiaries, you know, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals beneficiaries, was only estimated at about 700,000 people. So he offered a huge compromise. He offered citizenship and amnesty, something that a lot of people on the right were criticizing, and yet the Democrats said no to that. I think he's winning this race, this competition, or if you can call it that, this fight, because I think a lot of people have seen, look, he already offered to give the Democrats a lot of what they like in exchange for helping him secure the border, and yet they're saying no.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he should continue down this path of shutdown and just let it play out? Do you think that's more of a winning strategy, or do you think he declares a national emergency now and that's the better way forward?
Look, as you know, politics is a rapidly shifting thing in Washington, D.C. Right now, it looks like his only path might be a declaration of a national emergency, because both Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have said that absolutely under no circumstances will they provide funding for enhanced border security. Could that change a month from now if constituents are really pressuring them? Well, as you know, there's never anything that lasts or is certain in Washington, and things can change overnight. You know, a month from now, perhaps they might feel pressure to change their mind, but right now it doesn't look like they will. So this might end up being one of the only options the president has.
Hans, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Sure.